Okay, we're good.
Hey guys, welcome to another week of fun, just beautiful game. As always, a couple, but uh, great show coming on. Having the signings and the new. We also will get off with a special guest, and I'll kick it over to Mark to keep them.
Hey, Coach, thanks for joining us. Just to dive right in to some of the questions we have for you and that we've got from other fans. Just first off, can you talk about what made Chattanooga Red Wolves so appealing to you as a coach, and what brought you in and convinced you that this was the right place to go at this time?
I think at any time in your career, whether you're a coach or whether you're a player, you want to be able to walk into a stadium full of fans and excitement and feel like you live in a city that is a soccer city. And I feel like the history of soccer being played in Chattanooga has proven that they have a great fan base, an educated fan base. And with the vision of our owner, Bob Martino, wanting to build a soccer-specific stadium and a training facility, it just had all the ingredients that creates a great challenge as a startup. And it's always fun to start, a program from scratch.
And so going off that, I know you've had experience with expansion franchises before. You were with San Antonio back when they were in the NASL. Can you talk about what are the differences and similarities you see between these two franchises and the build-ups to their expansion seasons?
Every city has its own challenges. You look at the demographics, how can we build a team that is going to be appealing to the residents there, the soccer fans there. The budgets are a little bit different, from where we were in the NASL to where we're starting in League One. So there are challenges to see what level player you can get here. I think in San Antonio, almost our whole starting lineup were MLS guys.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's harder to attract that initially to League One. Most of those players dropping out of Major League are going to look into the championship. But I think that, given a year of, being on the ground where we're no longer just a piece of air, without history, without having a win on the books yet, it's a little bit of a harder sell to have MLS guys buy in. But, the world of lower league soccer is a world of soccer gypsies, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
They bounce from team to team. And the common thread is that soccer players are tired of bouncing around. And we think that we can create a community team with an academy underneath us and coaching jobs, in addition to the opportunity to play on a great stage.
So talking about the forming of the team, Red Wolves by far have the most international players, probably, at least the most international spots of any team in League One. What was the idea behind going out and getting, that international experience and talent compared to maybe looking within the country?
Well, I mean, we don't have all of our international spots filled. But we do have an abundance of players on the rosters with international origins. But I think that if you looked, and we don't list these things on the roster, but, half of the international players that are listed there are green card or U.S. citizens. Players like Soto, who's a Mexican-American, played for Houston Dynamo and Chivas USA, but he's an American citizen. Dixon played for the Jamaican national team, but he's a U.S. citizen. So there are some internationals that we brought in, where you go through the visa process. But overall, it just comes down to, it wasn't by plan. It was more just looking for the best player that's available at that time and figuring out the status from that point on. It's been fun. It's very eclectic. I think the guys are enjoying, an Argentinian getting to know an Albanian and a Brazilian getting to know an Irishman. So it's a lot of fun each day, and the guys seem to really have been opened up to the team spirit and because of the differences.
And with those signings, Go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to ask there, you know, with the different signings that you have, you know, without giving too much of your tactics away, what can fans and what can the other USL League teams, you know, look forward to? What kind of style or consistency?
Well, I kind of term a different soccer terminology or expression. I call it fusion, where you attack based on how you defend, and you defend on how you attack. That don't look at them as separate entities. Look at them and how they complement each other. So if we're a team that can and want freedom in the attack and dynamic runs from different areas and interchanging of positions, then defensively, we must know how to cover those players when they find themselves out of their natural position. And so who's going to cover and where do they recover to make sure that we have a compact defense? So we try and work with that concept. And if we can be good at that, then it will give us a lot of freedom in the attack to create a lot of scoring chances and hopefully being a high-scoring team.
Now, with your player equations this offseason, we noticed that you guys were one of the earliest teams to start signing players and start training camp. What was the idea behind that, if any, and how important is team chemistry, especially in the first year of a team at all?
Well, you know, going back to the internationals, it takes, you know, somewhat of 3 months to get a visa. And so we felt that from the start, let's try and get those players signed and in place. And then we would start to work on the American core that becomes the larger foundation of the roster. We work on building the spine first. So, you know, getting Uelefi from Swope Park when he played there as the holding midfielder, working on players like Tony Walls and Nicholas, the Ghanaian, through the center of the park. You know, looking at Stephen Beattie, who's kind of a central attacking midfielder with Soto, and Ayman Zayed, who played for me at Indy 11 in the NASL and was our top scorer for the 2 years that we were together. It started to build through the center, and then you start looking for the complements, and that has a lot to do with fitting styles around the players that you initially sign. You know, I was fortunate enough to have a player like Carlos Valderrama for a few years in MLS when I coached there, and you had to find the style player that complemented his game. And we do the same, even though we don't have a Carlos Valderrama. You still have a spine of a group of players that are kind of your centerpieces, and you have to find players that are going to fit alongside that, who style-wise complement each other.
Awesome. So throughout this year, you don't only have USL League One to focus on and to play, but you'll also be in the US Open Cup. Can you talk about, you know, trying to balance those two out? What are your thoughts towards the US Open Cup? How important is it for you and for the team?
You know, realistically, the thought of getting past championship level teams, avoiding the early upset against a lower division team, and thinking that you're going to get past 2 or 3 rounds of MLS clubs, you'd be a little bit overly confident and optimistic to think that that's all going to fall into place. But having coached in NASL against MLS teams, you know, we beat a Houston Dynamo. We took a Chicago Fire to penalty kicks. And so I do believe that it's important to set the goal that the US Open Cup is important. If you look at also prize money, you know, $300,000, that makes a lot of players smile in the locker room when they hear about that. But also the fact that if you are the top team in your division and have gone the furthest in the cup, then there is prize money there too. So there's a lot to play for, and it's a famous cup, our oldest cup, and it's always exciting to be a part of it and take on the challenges that exist there.
And just recently, Chattanooga announced plans for a new training facility. Can you describe what the ultimate goals for that facility is, how important it is for the team and for the fans in general?
Well, you know, right now we are working out of Chattanooga Christian School, which is a private high school. And we appreciate the facilities and the support that they've given us. But there's nothing like walking into your own locker room, you know, your workplace, having your performance area, having your weight room, having your film room, having offices. It's an important training facility because it's right in the middle of a complex that a lot of the community uses for club soccer. And so to be able to see a flagpole with a large Red Wolves flag that's always present where these young players are playing. You know, we're expecting to have a field turf field and 2 grass fields. This will be utilized by the first team, but also we're in the process of developing an academy with tryouts coming up in the spring. And therefore, we will have a full tiered system underneath us that will utilize that facility in the evening, since we train there in the morning, and teams will, under the Red Wolves banner, will have the opportunity to train there. One of those fields will have a 1,500 seat facility so that the exhibition games or league games that are important to the club can be played there. And then the stadium is going to be in a different area of town, and that would probably be about 5,000 seats, soccer specific, with some private boxes, press box, and the goal is to build a team. You know, whether we stay League One, whether we become more ambitious and want to move to championship in the future, we'll see how it all goes. This is just, you know, the beginning of it and a vision. But our owner, Bob Martino, is very excited. He's become a soccer madman because he's got a USL 2, League 2 team out in Park City, Utah, where he lives, and he's also purchased a League 2 team in Dayton, Georgia, which is about 20 miles outside of Chattanooga. So they'll be very closely associated with us.
Awesome. So being a new team, how Chattanooga's done a good job at partnering with local companies, breweries, whiskey producers, eye care centers. How important is it to connect and engage with the community, especially in a city like Chattanooga?
Well, I mean, Chattanooga is not a large city by any stretch. Therefore, you know, there is a minor league baseball team in town. There's a college team in, you know, sports program in town with Tennessee Chattanooga. So we can become an important player in the community as far as being connected with the youth community, the family demographics, and promoting products for the local sponsors that maybe in the past they haven't had that vehicle to work through. So I think the community is excited, and I think they're taking it very serious. You don't announce and build a stadium unless you're not planning to stick around. And so, you know, I think they're very committed to growing this program, and we'll see where it goes.
Awesome. And I just want to end on this last question, Coach. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us. But as a soccer fan and as a coach, can you talk about what you personally are looking forward to most this season in League One?
Getting, first of all, preseason over with, and getting the season started. You know, I've just moved from San Antonio, but I still have wife and family down there, and our first game is in Dallas against the North Texas team, which is a brand new team, and I'll have a lot of family coming to visit there in our inaugural game. It's also an interesting game because the new coach there, Eric Quill, I was the first coach of Project 40 back in 1997 when Major League first started. I was director of player development for the league, and we had a young 18, 19-year-old that had left Clemson University, given up a scholarship to join this Project 40 program. We call that Generation Adidas nowadays, but back then it was Project 40. And so Eric played for me. He was on that team. He was a part of the very first class. And then later I became coach of Tampa Bay Mutiny of MLS, and he was assigned to that team. So we worked, and he got his first major league starts under me. So we have a long history, but, you know, being 18 back then, now he's 40 years old. He's a head coach of a USL League One team, and that's going to be our first battle. So I'm looking forward to the reunion.
Awesome. Well, good luck this season, Coach. Thanks for taking the time again to talk with us tonight, and we hope to talk to you more in the future.
Look forward to it, gentlemen.
Thanks.
All the best.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, do you want to get to some news and scores now?
Sure. Thank you. So with signing done, they have Ali, Hammond, and Guy. Isn't that correct? He's 18 years old. As mentioned, he is on loan from Minnesota United. The interesting pick for the year with a handful of other players so far for League One. He was the captain of the Tanzania national team. He also appeared with the U23 club, and before he came to Minnesota United, he also played for a Czech Republic team called NK Vyškov. So a lot of international talent there. Definitely Republic, captain, and so everybody's there. So it's significant with Minnesota United, and it just goes to show how the partnerships can be. This player that can come down, get some time, prove what he's worth, come back to the club, or whether it's a loan and then next year the MLS squad. We also have Raw making show today. With Toronto's U16 and 17, as well as Toronto's U18 and 19 academy in his experiences. For goals there. Obviously he has some experience with the Toronto program. They like what they saw, and he's on the next level up team. I think, however, that they seeing on Brodny FC, which is in Sweden. He's 18-year-old with TSC Academy, and their U18 and 19 squad and appearances. The interesting thing about Luke, at age 13, he made the debut for the youth program, which was the eyes of different teams there, and where Toronto picked him up from. So at a young age, impact. That's another. Getting calls up. Before you Tucson, I brought this up in the show last week, at least on the fact that a trial is sure, whether he's going to be signed or not. But we confirm that Kirk, the goalkeeper, has been signed by Lansing Ignite. He last played for the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, so that's a bit last year, and before that he played for other some youth pick. I believe that he's mainly going to be the secondary, maybe off games, but definitely a solid pickup. Negative that I can say about Mike, and it's nothing that he can control, is he is a bit short. So that can be an issue with the goalkeeper, but he has a good work rate. He can definitely pick up the slack when Dan Lynn midway through for the Riverhounds. Mike had to pick up about 6 or 7 games and face some really good teams, Indy 11, Cincinnati FC. So he has some experience there. He can play in the big moments and do well. And then also Ricardo Perez Ignite. Now he is a Colorado homegrown player. He played for Albuquerque of League 2. With 14 appearances, he also played for the Charlotte Independence, and is a pretty good passer from what we have last year, an 85% passing accuracy. So once again, Ignite just picked picking up players that can, and that's the key going into this season. You know, you have majority of your roster there, and the rest you're picking up pieces that can keep that consistency for your team. And since we have an FC Tucson signing up, Mark, I'll kick it back to you.
Yeah, so FC Tucson this week picked up Zach Wright, a striker. Originally last year signed as a homegrown with SKC, but was waived just over a month later. So not a whole lot of time. Didn't make any appearances with the team. Signed on to play with RGV SC last year in the championship. Only had 9 appearances with them. Didn't get on the score sheet at all. And so there's not a whole lot of tape on this guy. He had a great career at North Carolina in Chapel Hill as a striker. And so he's still a young guy. He's only 23. We'll see what he can add to the team. I imagine he'll get time as a striker, maybe not the immediate starter, but there should be some time for him. And now that gives Tucson, I believe, 19 players now. And so they're just about wrapping up their signings. I believe they have 8 or 9 trialists still in camp. So we'll see who else they add. But I think Zach Wright could be a sleeper this year in League One.
Yeah, you mentioned, at least FC Tucson has most of their guys signed from the first game. So the roster spots are filling up. Teams are just kind of waiting around now to see, where the trickle-down effect is from League One. U.S. Championship, they started last week, and there's some teams with still left to fill if they want the full roster spot there. So, there's definitely some trickle-down that can come. But speaking of tour 2 weeks away, we still have some preseason games to go. The most notable game by at least a score line this week was Lansing versus Davenport University. So Lansing beat Davenport. Beat might be a gracious word there. It was a 7-0 victory for Lansing. To note, though, most of those goals came within the first 30 minutes, and a lot from the corner kicks. So, when you can have corner kicks and or set pieces, working for you, getting your goals, that's something that defenses are going to have to look at more, and teams are going to have to set up. For Hounds 2 weeks ago, I didn't see a lot of pieces. I couldn't give a good estimate on that, but it looks like Lansing's setting up to be a full team, just from everything that they can do. Some scoring there, so that's going to be interesting. Now, he also mentioned maybe the captain, the team. I believe just the full credit for that is Cap Lansing's team podcast.
Yeah, and I'll add. I listened to that.
And another interesting thing
I'll add to that. I listened. No, it's good. I listened to the Capital Combustion this morning. If you want more people talking in your ears about Ignite, it's a great podcast to listen to. And I'm going to be really interested to see how Nick Moon does this year for the Ignite. He's getting a lot of buzz this preseason, especially for someone picked up on a tryout, pretty much. But I'm real interested to see how he does, and I think he can be a huge impact player in the league this year.
I know you want to show like that during the River game. When they were attacking, at least in the game that I saw, when they were on the attack, he played as more of a wide off mid. that he'd come back and play more of wing back. He would make runs that would drive Bob Lilly crazy because he would get back in the defense with almost no one looking at him. He had 2 or 3 great runs. They'd face off, but if he can do that and pitch it up, it's not necessarily expected. There can be some dangerous pieces off of that. And even if it's a deep run, as we can see with the last game with corner kicks, it was that Raheem Edwards, who is player, he is with the team. All signs point to him being sick. At least that's the official word there. So I know the fans there are getting ready to see him play, wanting to see him play. It was sort of they had him loaned down, and I would leave it long, but if he other Toronto wasn't the games for the Hounds and things of that nature. There was an event put after the Hounds game that day for season ticket holders. They did their kit reveal and everything. So maybe it was the Hounds just sort of looking forward to that, looking forward to the season to start because Bob Lilly wasn't all that happy. And I can't say that Toronto looked amazing, but they just had less mistakes, and sometimes that's all it takes in the game. You don't have to be better than your opponent; you just have to play cleaner than your opponent. University of Virginia beat the Richmond Kickers 4-2 this past week, and North Texas beat the University of Tulsa 3-1. Mark, I know that Tucson played Grand Canyon University, and I believe do you have any more information about that?
Not too much more information. It wasn't streamed or anything, and funny enough, it was happening a couple miles from where I live, but the team didn't put anything out about it until a couple hours before, and so I was already watching Phoenix Rising and doing stuff with them, and so I didn't get a chance to see it. I did see Grand Canyon scored from about midfield, or at least that's what was said. Chip the keeper from midfield, and so we'll see. I don't think this game is an indication of anything that's going to happen this year. And so at least it's game time for the guys, right? There's not a whole lot of teams Tucson can play at this point in this region to get that preseason practice. They're surrounded by USL teams who are already started, or you have college teams, and there aren't that many even in this area. Grand Canyon's the only Division I men's team here, so at least they're getting some game time next couple of weeks. But yeah, it's just one of those results you shrug and say, okay, we'll move on.
I think there were more I think it's more as we talked about it. It's less the results where teams play. Two of these last weeks, as the roster spots are a little bit forward. But overall, it looks so. We talked about when we interviewed. We talked about their academy. Has rebranded their academy, and what they did was they streamlined the academy. There's more of a direct connection with their League One teams, and team, and maybe potentially moving in years to come, or even higher. But it makes more sense to the branding there. the interesting part to me is I was looking over that the youngest player involved at 2.5, and now I wasn't in any soccer academy at like, super, I don't know, like maybe it's just me, I've fully been around a cat. I feel 2.5. How much you learn to kick the ball and what soccer really is, but that seems super young.
Oh, for sure. And I actually have a buddy of mine who coaches with an organization called Soccer Shots, and they do kids like under 5. And so, yeah, it's super basic stuff. You're not trying to teach them any tactics or anything, but at least you get them starting going through the motions, kicking the ball. It's like playing t-ball. You just gotta teach them that swing and hope they can take the next 2 to 3 years in practice and just get used to having the ball around and the idea of not touching it with your hands. And so it's definitely baby steps, no pun intended, but as long as you can keep keep a kid from 2.5 to who knows 21 in the same academy, I mean that will pay dividends real fast. Actually not fast at all, because that's
for sure
a whole lot of time.
No, that I don't know how many cat players all the way through. But that is you can hang your hat on, and it is a low. South Carolina, some of the cities that were mentioned, Sparrow, Jessup, pretty much anywhere in Tormenda's area, there's going to be a place for an academy there. And the nice thing that I saw was that it was also varying by the player level and the improvement from year to year and season to season. So it's not sort of here's a structure, you get it, now move on. It's more of, not exactly one-on-one, but more of where your skill level is. So when you're in elementary, high school, you're going to be with people that are around your playing level, even if that means, as age you're moving up into a higher group, or, if you're struggling a little bit, or, it may not be a wise decision, moving forward, if you're struggling and it's, having people pass you up essentially, age-wise. But it's interesting that, there is, 4 or 5 towns there that they're going to have an academy for and players to bring in, and, hopefully it goes into their League 2, League 1, that would be amazing to see someone that's, in Tormenta from, we'll go with 2.5 since that's where it starts, but 2.5 all the way through League 2, League 1, and maybe USL Championship or above.
For sure.
All right, guys. So, due to a little bit of shortness of show, though, here we do have time for lots of your questions. So, we're going to start off with Cody. And we touched on this, but Cody asks, how much stake do we put in Lansing's victory over Davenport? For me, it is a good victory, but I'm not going to say that Lansing's gonna run the table and score 5+ goals every game. It's more of how they played. If they can polish up these corner kicks and be deadly off corner kicks, that's something to look at. But number-wise, I'm not really to go. How about you?
Yeah, not too much at stake. It's a pretty looking score line over a Division II soccer team, so you can't take too much away. I will say, watching that first 20-25 minutes, I think is a big deal, because they scored 5 goals in that time. And so just to see kind of that killer instinct of the team, no matter who you're playing, they don't let down after they score. They score, and then they score, and then they score, and they score. some little things like that, I think can make an impact in the season. But yeah, I mean, putting 7 up against a D2 school is not a huge deal for me.
Person asks, what is our prediction versus Red Wolves? Mark, you start off with this one. Um, I mean, if you can just give whether it's thing you want.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be. I can't really tell what will happen. I know Louisville City has a game the day before, so you're not getting the first choice Louisville team at all. You're getting reserves, you're getting the bench players, and so I think I mean there's a chance that Red Bulls can come out and win that game, but it's going to be a deceiving scoreline at the same time. It's great that these two teams are getting connected and playing. It's great for that kind of cross USL relationship, but it'll definitely be a weakened Louisville City side. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Chattanooga pull it out.
Yeah, the scoreline is going to be deceiving. So I can see this easily being a draw. Louisville is one of the better teams in USL Championship. So by that fact alone, you would assume that their secondary players, are at least as good as their first players, or maybe just a step below. So I'd figure out a draw. I wouldn't be surprised if the Red Wolves win, but I wouldn't put any stake into it. I'm not good with predictions, but I'm going to save my predictions for no one really cares. Like how bad we are on Twitter.
They would never do that, would they?
So I don't know. They've been nice to us. It's Jason. They just care what Jason says. That's all. Agree. What supported group has the? I'm assuming he means one. Like, groups outside of League One that has pretty interesting names. But Mark, do you have a favorite? Like I only know a handful.
I think off the top of my head, I think the Flock is one of the better names because it's just it fits with the team. Like you don't quite when you hear the Flock and you're given a list of teams, you can easily pick out which team they are connected to. And so I like the Flock. I have to go with the homer pick and say Cactus Pricks for Tucson because it's just a great name and it matches them perfectly, which I like. So those two would probably be my favorites.
Yeah. If with Beth Pricks, because you get away with so nice. But I don't know if that's the best name, and like I said, like I don't know if this is supporter group's name. Like I honestly have no clue.
The FC Dallas one is the Guardians, right? But I don't know if North Texas has one yet.
Names, because I don't know all the support groups names. Like I only have like 3 or 4, but just for the sake of saying it, I'm going to use this Pricks. That'll be my guess. So Carson also asked next season, and unless I'm wrong, I don't believe it'll be next season or Bowling Green. Get a team. I know when we had Ryan Matt on the show, he was saying that they were with and I mean but I feel that when all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed for the team. You know, depending on if they have facilities available and all of that. I would point toward more of a 2021 opening for either location.
Yeah, I think there was some talk, right, of Lexington possibly being a Cincinnati USL one side for Cincinnati. I don't think that was official in any way, but it could happen. Other than that, you know, I think the league right now there's been a lot more talk about the teams coming down from USL Championship. So I wouldn't be surprised to see only 3 or 4 true expansion sides next year. And in that case, I would hope that those are coming from the West and more Midwest to fill out the region of the country.
I think that, you know, there's not that many teams on the East field that will get, you know, teams. You can get dropped down with relative ease, and it'll give the teams a better schedule, travel, so they don't have to keep back and problems. It's interesting though to see speculation of 10 teams getting moved down over the next few years. So I'm interested to see how they're going to manage that. If it's going to be a trickle effect, or if there's a ball being moved down next year, and then, you know, in 2021 and beyond is when you get created and mixed with teams that are getting. So, with another geographical system here, Brad asked, with geography, there are only 2 Michigan teams remain, which are Lansing Knight and Arbor. Who is the predicted opponent for Eames' Open Cup matchup? I'm going to leave you to kick that one off, Mark.
Well, actually, I was going to say we should probably we should hold off on that one, and we'll bring it back next week because I'd have to look, because right now I don't even know who's still in from the lower leagues. I'd assume FC Tucson would get someone like El Paso, the UPSL team from El Paso, if they make it through all the way. I believe it's Southwest FC, but at this point, I don't even know.
Yeah, because you know there's only 6 of the 10 teams.
Oh, and FC Tucson's not even in the Open Cup, so that doesn't matter either.
So yeah, Brad, you know, we're not dodging the question. We will get back to you next week.
We'll get back. We'll save that one.
The answers. So besides Flint City Bucks, that's a neat name, Flint City Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
Brad also asking, what other existing Michigan teams you see joining the USL Championship League One, such as G and Kalamazoo. So, you know, I would think that Ann Arbor may become a do. All depends on what the fan base to. People are probably not looking this way, but the EU is really looking at who's to 28 plus. Just because that's this. It's either if there's areas where there's not at least a League One or USL Championship team, and they're watching the games, that's an easier transition to ask, you know, if they want a League One or a chip. So first two guesses would be Ann Arbor, Kalamazoo. I think it comes down which areas having ability for teams?
If I had to pick, I would say AFC Ann Arbor, because let me tell you, that is one of the prettiest looking logos I've ever seen. If you haven't seen it, it's a beautiful logo. I would own any piece of clothing that had that logo on it. So just based on that silly preference, I would say Ann Arbor. But I don't know too much about Michigan. I don't know where people live there or how it's spread out. But I'd be surprised if we got another League One or championship side from there, at least until Detroit figures out their MLS situation, or Detroit City figures out what they want to do if they're staying where they are at. Otherwise, I think we won't see too much movement from those teams.
Yeah, there between the supporter groups about whether Lake Michigan was named after the state was named. So I'm not going on what, but it's very interesting when supporter groups are going after. Obviously that's what we wanted to see, for the fact of it makes it when you can just sort of lovingly, more or less, out of the team that's geographically close to you. I do have to say, if you haven't seen the kits for Forward Madison, especially the goalie kit, Flamingo isn't even what they did. Like, they went beyond Flamingo for this.
It's a full. We'll talk about this more next week with Jason, because I know Jason has some takes on this. But yeah, they pretty much stamped their logos with their logo, or their jerseys with their logo, everywhere.
Like, I mean, we will talk about this next week, but my hot take on this is that when I saw the goalie jersey, I immediately thought of every in college. Like, just put a shirt, and that's what the goalie kit looks like. So I don't know if I love it or hate it, but it's always a great question. One, how many that Raheem Edwards is going to play for Lansing?
Well, I can go ahead with that one.
He plays games. It's going to.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that situation. Listening to, again, the guys at Capital Combustion this morning, and, he's sick, and trying to figure out what the Fire are even trying to do at this point. They have to get rid of someone else to bring him back up. But, there's questions of why Lansing. Like, Edwards is a guy that could obviously play anywhere else almost in MLS or championship especially. So it'll be interesting to see. I think they said in their podcast earlier that they were thinking 1 to 7 games, and I'd be surprised if he plays 5. I'll say 5.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I didn't listen to the podcast. The fact that my gut reaction was they're ready. Yeah, and it, yeah, I can't believe that Chicago would just leave. I mean, just leave going to a terrible team. Right? I don't believe. I want to say 7 because MLS the first week. MLS will be 4 or 5 weeks into their season.
Yeah,
more or less. They should have a good grasp of what they're trying to do. So by the time the games, it'll probably be closer to 2 months MLS schedule. And I don't see him being down here all season. If he is, that's great for Lansing. That's great for League One to get exposure. But I don't see him down here more than 7 games.
It's a waste of talent at that point, especially if he balls out that first couple games and he's just so much higher talent, has a higher talent level than the rest of the team and the teams he's playing against. You gotta find somewhere else for him to play.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
So Ryan asked us, how much is an acceptable price for a away ticket? The tournament dollars, doesn't know about other teams, but that is expensive for my travel, so that he hoped that the rest are relatively cheaper. With you, what I mean, it would also on location. For me, like, I don't think 20 where the horse is and it's a little bit the pricey side. Supporter gets for the Riverhounds lead admission, for various things run about 10, 20, and if you we have a club thing, so it runs more. And I know that the places like Tampa Bay have odd ones where it's like generally behind the back, $65. Ridiculous. Like you're 3/4 of the way to a jersey at that point. So I don't know how much is too much. I would assume like anywhere between 10 to 20, depending on the team, depending on the location, would kind of be average. But I don't know. Mark, like how much are Phoenix's seats?
So Phoenix's, I think, are 25. They pretty much they've combined most of the sections, and so all sideline prices are the same. At least as far as I know. So I think it's between 25 and 35. FC Tucson hasn't released. I was trying to look at all the ticket prices today, and FC Tucson hasn't released their single game tickets yet, as far as I know. But 25, for me, 25 doesn't seem like that much for a ticket. And you got to understand, especially when you're traveling to a different team, and that team's not going to subsidize the other team's traveler or supporters. From what I've been able to tell, sometimes a team who is traveling will buy tickets and subsidize them for the fans that are traveling as well. But 25 seems like a fine amount based on the other teams I looked at. I think that's a fine amount, and if teams want to hop on and start subsidizing their fans' travel, that's a great sign of team health and just how much impact the team can have on the community. But it's not up to the home team, I think, to make tickets cheaper for people traveling.
Yeah, I just a quick. Probably if they get some days, you sort of say, I don't know if the teams do at a point where they can fix prices based on their opponent, but for the Capital Cup is now right across the road. If that seems to be like it's not terrible. I can understand there's multiple people, 25 bad consider the cost for it. I can't, but it all depends on how, if your team does give you some subsidies for it, by all means take advantage for it. Here, I don't know if they, but didn't they at least have transport one of the playoff games?
Yeah, they
I
provided
might be
free
making that up.
transportation to the Western Conference Final, but we had to buy tickets through OC, and those tickets even weren't that bad. I bought one and didn't even end up using it. I just wanted to make sure I had a spot. But yeah, it's little things like that teams can do, especially for the teams so close together. Phoenix to Orange County is like 6 hours, and that's our closest trip that we can make. Besides Vegas, actually, Vegas is about 4.5, 5. So, I mean, if those teams can subsidize maybe travel, maybe that's how you get it cheaper, and still be okay with paying that ticket price.
Yeah, so Ryan, if you're listening, I hope you are, but if you are, reach out to your team, see if they can give you any special deals. I know that sometimes they can work with the other team's box offices and work out some things, especially if there's a group of you. If you can get a group together in better rate, but sometimes the teams can work out anything else that we didn't mention.
No, I'm all good for the night. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you if that's what you're asking.
That for the second week in a row, my mic decided on the computer, but when I felt if I said weird, we're rolling with the punches here.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you guys. For next week, and we also technically in to Chris to that'll be exciting for that. You can
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Jeff?
I was just saying that the floor was yours, and I'll leave you in the show tonight.
Oh, thank you. Again, thanks guys for joining us. We want to thank Coach Tim as well as Red Wolves SC for joining us tonight and chatting it up. Guys, we only have 2 more weeks until the season starts. I personally can't believe it's already here. It feels like it's been forever, but we're excited. We should have a full cast next week. Hopefully we have all 4 guys. We have a lot to talk about as the season gets closer. We'll probably talk more jerseys. We'll talk supporter groups, and we'll probably start talking predictions because it's about that time. So thanks guys for joining us. And we also want to thank, before we go, our sponsor, Roughneck Scarves. I personally love Roughneck Scarves, guys. They're the official scarf provider of MLS, USL, and US Soccer, and they have some pretty awesome college scarves as well. So check them out. You can do your custom scarves there as well. I also want to thank, before we get out of here, Beautiful Game Network for hosting us. Check out all of their podcasts of USL, MLS, and USL League One. And with that, Jeff, good night, sir. See you guys.
Like